Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show, your daily dose of guitar information. Today is kind of a historic day because I finally get to document Robert Baker's Les Paul KM. Now this has been about 2 years in the making because I first emailed him all the way back in October of 2017. And I wasn't looking for a shout out from him, I was just wanting to document his really cool KM in a series that I was starting at the time called Would You Rock or Not, which is now over 200 episodes long. But Robert's KM has always been one of the coolest ones ever due to the way it's aged. It's got this really cool aged double cream pickups. They're not all gonna look like this, and just the way the finish is aged and been sun bleached. This is just such a cool Les Paul KM. So I drove to his house, I stole it, and it's just mine now. Oh wait, no, he's over here.
How'd you even get this thing?
I don't know. It just kind of showed up at my house today, guys. All right, so he's going to share his personal story with this guitar.
Yeah, so this was a story of a super overly supportive wife. I was just kind of decided I wanted a Les Paul, and kind of the deal that we had struck was, you can get a Les Paul, but it has to be an old one. She didn't want it to be a new one. And I was like, oh, well, I can't get an old one. And then this one came up, and she found it at a Guitar Center in Indianapolis, which is why the guitar's name is Indy. But that was basically it. And, as soon as they opened up the case, they had said one of the guys there was thinking about buying it. But I called and was just like, hey, hold that guitar for me. And they're like, well, you got to put $100 down on it. And I'm like, all right. And then drove over, played it for 2 seconds, bought it. I knew right away as soon as I felt the neck in my hand. I was like, nah, this is the guitar. And then it just kind of took over from there. And it's my number one.
It's basically your signature guitar as far as I'm aware of. Yeah. When I think Robert Baker, I think Les Paul KM.
You know what? This is always the guitar people mention. If we run into each other at guitar shows or something like that, they're just like, you're Les Paul KM. It's like the talked about guitar. And I know 3 people who have bought these now. They rarely surface. And then they'll be there, and I'll share a link or something, and someone's like, dude, I'm getting it. Yeah, I don't like it anymore, though, so it's yours now.
Oh, thank you. You can now buy it on Reverb for $10,000. All right, huge thanks to Robert for bringing this over. Let's go ahead and learn about the Les Paul KM. All right, so the Les Paul KM, it was birthed in 1979. It was the way for the Kalamazoo guys to show up the Nashville people. They wanted to build something closer to 59 specs because that's what was all the rage at this point in time. It's essentially Gibson's first attempt at a 59. How did they do? They did terribly. There's so many off specs to 50s, but these are really cool Norlin era Les Pauls. First production, 1979. You can find these as late as 1981. I'm always surprised when I find one from 81 because I was always told it was 1979 only. Sometimes you'll see the number 1500 produced thrown around, but these were not marked in any way, so there's really no way to know. Though they do fetch a slight premium over a regular standard. So the colors you can find include Cherry Sunburst, a Tobacco Sunburst, very similar to this one, usually a darker color than a brighter one. And there's also natural ones. The only color I haven't documented is natural, so we will still see one more of these one day on the channel. From a collector's standpoint, there is a Golden Goose of KMs. It's ones like this one that have a custom-made plaque installed on them. That signifies it was one of the first ones made. Sometimes you'll find it installed on the guitar, sometimes you'll find it installed on the case, and some of these do have pretty nice flamed or bird's-eyed maple tops. As far as being a 59 reissue, what have they done wrong? Well, we have a Nashville-style bridge instead of an ABR1. The Les Paul body shape, yeah, sure, the pointy cutaway isn't quite as pointy on these, but they don't quite have the shape right. Things like the thick binding in the cutaway is not correct. Speed knobs, you still have the wide Les Paul-looking headstock. And get this, a 3-piece maple neck. How many 59s have you guys seen with maple necks? So if you look at them like a 59 reissue, these were a massive fail. However, why they're kind of cool is because they are a little bit better than a standard Les Paul of this era because they have a stock 2-piece maple top. That's a spec. You won't find them with 3-piece, 5-piece, 7 pieces like you will on the regular Norlin standards. So that might not be a big deal today to have a 2-piece maple top, but it was for back then. This was a big thing. Another feature is they were made in Kalamazoo, the original Gibson factory. At this point in time, the new Nashville factory had just opened up about 3.5 years ago, and eventually all Les Paul production switched down to there. Many people will incorrectly state that this was the last Les Paul model made at Kalamazoo, which it might have been around the time when Les Paul started to dwindle from this factory, but that statement's not entirely true. However, if you're interested in seeing the last Les Paul custom made in Kalamazoo, here's a video for that. In my experience, Kalamazoo-made guitars do feel significantly different to the Nashville brethren. They're both good, but there's something special to these guys. And the biggest feature of the Les Paul KM and what makes them so expensive is the double cream T-top pickups. Now, a lot of people will see these and be like, oh, you got DiMarzios in your thing, do ya? But no, they're actually stock Gibson pickups. And for sale separately, if and only if you can find them and make sure they're actually T-tops and not dirty fingers, I mean, they'll run you anywhere between $500 to $600, sometimes even more. They were only in the Les Paul KM. These are the pickups that kind of started the kerfuffle with the DiMarzio and their whole double cream patent. Now, there are a few other models that Gibson made that did get the double creams, but this is the only one that is a T-top. Most double creams you find out there are usually dirty fingers, or some other variety of pickup. So that's kind of the gist of these things. They were closer to 50 spec, basically just slightly nicer guitars than the standard of the era. But there's nothing wrong with the standards of the era either. So let's go ahead and throw this one on the workbench and tear it apart for him for the first time. Inside the Robert Baker KM.
It's my heart and soul.
So this is the first time he's actually seeing inside of his own guitar, especially the pickup cavities.
Yeah.
Now, what's really special about the Les Paul KM, as we were talking about earlier, they're T-tops. You see, you've got your T's there, and you've got your Gibson patent numbers. And that's true for both the neck and bridge, and that's where a lot of the value comes out of a Les Paul KM. Inside the pickup cavities themselves, you can see it's short neck tenon. Unfortunately, no fancy writing. I was hoping we'd find something for him. Now, it's kind of cool with all his parts taken off here is you can see how much the sun has faded this finish. I mean, look underneath the pickguard right here, how much darker that is. You can also see it underneath these pickup rings. A little bit harder to see it there, but it's definitely present. But that is actually really cool because that tells us that this has had so much sunlight, and that's why it's the unusually dark coloring of this is because of that discoloration of the light. I mean, take a look at this pickguard. Within the circuit, our bridge pickup reads 7.58 k ohms, which is correct. And our neck pickup, about the same, 7.48. Middle position, just for fun, 3.76. Moving on to our bridge and tailpiece here. One is a Nashville style. You can see it says made in Germany, so that's how you know it's original. And despite trying to be a 59 reissue, they still use the stud-mounted one, so not an ABR one on these guys. And the tailpiece is also original on this one. You can see that tooling mark right here. So you're a pretty heavy-handed picker, I would guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got these scratches right here just from his playing. Now, if you're all upset about him scratching up a Les Paul KM, don't worry. They're not very deep. I'm sure you could actually polish those out.
It's going to be played more. So.
Yeah, so this guy's a two-piece maple top. You can see the center seam there. They were all about the 3, 5, and the occasional 7. You've got the original golden speed knobs here too. So maple top, solid mahogany body. Weight relief didn't exist yet, not till 1983. Frets on these guys, wide and flat. That's just how they were in this period of time. You can see Robert's definitely put some wear on them here, maybe even the previous owner. Truss rod cover reads Les Paul KM, KM standing for Kalamazoo. And his truss rod's in good shape. The thread's about level with the top of that, so many years left of playability and adjustment. Something that's kind of interesting about his is his Les Paul model silkscreen is slightly off-center. That's kind of funny, a nice little characteristic mark. This is how he currently has it set up. Action at the 12th fret, probably around 0.08. So he's got this set up nice and low. We've got a nut width of 1.68 inches. Which increases to 2.04 at the 12th. First fret neck depth, 0.82. which increases to 1.01 at the 12th. But keep in mind, that's mainly because the heel is starting, so it really doesn't feel that thick. And a 24 3/4 inch scale length. Moving on to the back side here, it looks like a one-piece mahogany body to me. Got some actually nice wood grain in this one. I like this little bundle of grains. And inside the back control plate, he does have a shielding tin in here, as it should have. But, what was that, 3 months ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like 3 months ago, he had the issue with the volume pots.
Yeah.
So it was like either on 10 or nothing.
It was 10 or... It's been that way since I got it. I just finally fixed it.
All right, so he had somebody put 500K CTS pots for those ones, and he left the original ones alone. You can see these date to 1979. The solder blob covers over the complete week, so somewhere between the 10th and 19th week of 1979. All right, Robert, I have something to tell you here.
Uh-oh.
You've got a ground wire, but it's not connected to anything. Because the whole grounding wire, they didn't really do that in this period of time. That's why these things exist.
Yeah.
So this is a feature that I've never really noticed about KMs, but I went back to my other one that I dissected, and this little yellow ground wire is also stock present on a KM as well as the shielding cover. At one point in time, it came undone from this blob of solder right here. We've got the thick binding in the cutaway, and he still has his original output jack here with the metal plate. I'm slightly suspicious of his strap buttons being replaced at one point in time because they almost look correct, but then there's other small features like it doesn't have like the beveling to the bottom of it. So it's very close, but the screws have definitely been swapped out. Moving on to the neck, it might look like mahogany right here, but it's a 3-piece maple neck. It just has that mahogany stain to it. He has the nice large volute right here. It's kind of cool. He's got 2 little wood grains right here that just makes it look like a smiley face. And then this stain right here is like a tongue sticking out. Then Made in USA stamp, vertically stamped to tell you it's Kalamazoo made. You can also verify that by the last 3 digits of your serial number, 44. So Kalamazoo. This is... Whoa. Robert, we have a connection.
Uh-oh.
My first 2550 that I bought started 72129. It was 10-4, and yours is 044. We're very close in production for that day. I hate to break this realization up, but my old 2550 was 72128. So unfortunately, it was made 1 year prior to this guitar, but it's still cool that a bunch of the digits matched up. Got his original milk bottle Grover style tuners here. Did you ever notice that about these? The milk bottle. If you look at them right here, you see the barrel.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes like that, like a milk bottle.
Yeah, that's funny. I've never known that.
Robert's Les Paul weighs 10 pounds, 11.4 ounces. So I hope you guys enjoyed getting to take a look at Robert Baker's personal Les Paul KM. I know I've wanted to see this one up close and personal for quite some time. I'll go ahead and go over the condition just because, hey, why not? So face of the headstock, you've got some light scratches. You've got dust. He asked me to leave the Mojo dust alone, so I did. The frets are in good shape, but he's definitely got some wear within the first few of them here. And another notable characteristic of the Les Paul KM are the inlays themselves. They're super white as compared to everything else in this era. One small thing that I did find is there's a very small crack protruding out of his three-way toggle switch cavity. Not a huge deal, but it is there. And he's got some heavy picking wear right here because he uses this thing quite a bit, don't you?
Too much.
And we'll zoom around the rest of the body here. Nothing too much to go over. And his neck is in pretty good shape here with a little bit of finish wear on it. In the back of the guitar, it definitely has some buckle worming marks from being used. And we'll take a quick look around the edges here. Nothing too much to note. Now, if you want to see this under black light, we're actually going to do that video over on his channel, so make sure you check out that link in the description.
All right. Well, like we said, this is going to be over. It's really, really cool seeing this thing under black light. I don't know. It's pretty wild seeing all the wear marks on it.
Yep. There's a few hidden surprises in there.
Yeah. So I think you guys will like it. We've shot quite a few videos together while we were here. So we've got some other stuff popping up here real soon. And then, just come hang out on my channel if you want to. Hang out on Trogly's channel. Look at this. Look at a dancing guitar. Come on.